When someone with avoidant tendencies becomes obsessed, they don't express it openly. Instead, their interest shows up in confusing, indirect ways. What looks like disinterest is often a disguised form of control, a pattern meant to test how much power they hold over your emotions. These behaviors may leave you questioning your worth. But the truth is, their games say more about their fears than about your value. Once you understand the psychology behind these mind games, you'll no longer be trapped in their cycle. You'll be able to see through them and outsmart them at every turn. They start with the hot and cold routine, and at first it feels like passion. The sudden warmth, the flood of attention, the way they look at you as if you are the only person that matters. It sweeps you up and convinces you that this connection is rare, even irreplaceable. But then, without warning, they switch off. The affection disappears, the conversations slow down, and you're left wondering what changed. That shift isn't accidental, it's deliberate. It's a psychological loop designed to train you into associating their return with relief, the kind of relief that makes you crave their presence even more. It's not love in its purest form, it's control disguised as intimacy. The avoidant thrives on the cycle of pulling you close and pushing you away because it places you in a state of constant pursuit. Your mind begins to replay every interaction, searching for answers, questioning what you might have done wrong. That doubt is the hook. And the more you chase, the more power they feel. Outsmarting this game begins with awareness. When you see the cycle for what it is, the emotional sting begins to lose its bite. Instead of rushing to fix the sudden coldness, you step back and remind yourself that nothing shifted in your worth, only in their tactics. Consistency is your weapon here. They expect you to react with anxiety, with desperate attempts to win back their warmth. But when you remain steady, when you continue living your life unaffected, the game collapses. Your calm exposes their strategy. Every time they go cold, instead of running after them, you show them that your emotional state doesn't swing with their mood. You continue to invest in yourself, in your peace, in the life you're building beyond them. That quiet strength unsettles the avoidant more than any chase ever could, because underneath the hot and cold exterior lies fear. The fear that if you stop craving their return, they'll lose the control they worked so hard to maintain. And the truth is, when you detach from the cycle, they feel it. Their obsession isn't fueled by your love, it's fueled by your reaction. Remove the reaction and you remove their power. That is how you outsmart the first game by refusing to play it. The silence they use is never just silence, it's a weapon. When someone with avoidant tendencies becomes obsessed but fears closeness, they don't always push you away with arguments or open conflict. Instead, they disappear into a void of unspoken words, unanswered calls, and delayed replies. At first, you may excuse it as business, stress, or distraction, but over time you begin to feel the sharp edge of their absence. The silence grows heavier, and with it the uncertainty inside you. That is exactly what they want. The avoidant mind game is built on control, and silence is one of their strongest tools. By withholding communication, they create an invisible pressure, a sense that you must be the one to break the quiet. You start second, guessing yourself, did I upset them? Should I reach out again? Why are they ignoring me? In truth, this strategy is designed to shift the power. When you chase them during the silence, you confirm to them that they are the one setting the rhythm of the connection. Outsmarting this requires an entirely different response. Instead of giving in to the anxiety that silence stirs, you anchor yourself in composure. You remind yourself that communication is not a one-way responsibility and that silence speaks volumes about them, not you. The key is not to meet their silence with desperate noise, but with your own calm. Carry on with your routines, your work, your joy, and let them see that your world does not crumble when they go quiet. This is not about playing games back. It's about reclaiming your center. When silence fails to control you, it loses its purpose. The avoidant may expect you to come running, but your self-possession tells a different story. You send a subtle but powerful message: you will not be trained to seek scraps of attention. And this shift unsettles them more than anything else, because their silence is no longer effective. Instead of being proof of their control, it becomes proof of their distance. And they are forced to face the reality that their attempts to manipulate you have no hold. That is how you disarm the second game, by meeting silence not with fear, but with indifference, and by showing that your peace cannot be interrupted by their withdrawal. They are always watching how deeply you need them, how far you will bend, how much you will tolerate, because for the avoidant, obsession doesn't look like devotion, it looks like testing. They may cancel plans at the last minute, brush off your concerns, or minimize your feelings, not because they don't notice, but because they want to see how you respond. If you get upset, they frame it as overreaction. If you accept it quietly, they see it as proof that you'll stay no matter how little effort they give. This is the hidden exam of emotional dependence, and every reaction you show becomes data in their mind. What they are really asking is, how much do you rely on me for your happiness? The irony is that their obsession isn't expressed by closeness, but by the constant need to measure your attachment. Outsmarting this doesn't mean pretending to be cold or distant. It means refusing to let their behavior dictate your sense of worth. When they test you by pulling away, you don't scramble to close the gap. When they minimize your needs, you calmly restate them, not as a plea, but as a standard. And when they dismiss your feelings, you don't doubt yourself. You hold your ground, knowing that your emotions are valid whether or not they acknowledge them. The power in these moments lies in self-possession. Instead of proving how much you need them, you prove how much you trust yourself. That subtle shift changes everything. Their tests lose meaning when you don't react from fear of losing them. Instead, you respond from strength, showing them that your happiness is built on more than their approval. This unnerves the avoidant because it flips the script. They can no longer gauge your dependence because there is none to exploit. Over time, the very tests they use to keep control become the cracks in their strategy. They realize that no matter how they push, you do not crumble. And in that realization, the balance shifts. You're no longer the one being measured. You become the one who decides whether their games are worth your energy. Outsmarting this third game isn't about passing their tests. It's about refusing to take them in the first place and living in a way that shows your stability is untouched by their attempts to shake it. Jealousy is one of their sharpest tools, and they wield it with subtle precision. They might casually mention someone who admires them, talk about an ex who still reaches out, or suddenly become overly friendly with someone in front of you. On the surface, it looks harmless, but beneath it lies intention. The avoidant thrives on sparking a reaction, watching closely to see if you'll become uneasy, if you'll try harder to win their attention back. This is not about genuine interest in others, it's about testing how much power they hold over your emotions. When you bristle, question, or compete, you feed their sense of control. They want to confirm that you fear losing them because that fear keeps you tied to their unpredictable rhythm. The obsession they feel doesn't show as open commitment, but in this twisted way of creating emotional dependency through insecurity. Outsmarting this game means refusing to step onto the battlefield they set. When they drop hints meant to sting, you do not bite. Instead of interrogating, you maintain calm curiosity, or better yet, you shift focus back to your own life. The truth is, jealousy only works when you place them at the center of your validation. The moment you stop competing with ghosts and shadows, the tactic collapses. They expect your attention to tighten around them, but your indifference disarms them completely. It shows them you see through the game, and more importantly, that your confidence is unshakable. There is no rival when you know your worth, no competitor when you understand your value. And that is what unsettles the avoidant most. The realization that the drama they tried to stir holds no weight in your world. The more unaffected you are, the more they lose grip on their illusion of control. What they framed as a power play becomes a mirror of their own insecurity, because in truth, it isn't you who fears being replaced. It's them. They crave proof that you're invested enough to fight for them, but when you stand steady, they are the ones left restless, questioning whether their games are failing. The smartest move is not to confront or compete, but to rise above, anchored in the certainty that you don't need to chase what already belongs to you, and you'll never battle shadows just to prove your place. They never offer clarity, only glimpses, and that's the point. One moment they'll speak of a future with you, dropping hints about shared plans, long-term dreams, or the life you could build together. It feels like a promise, like you're finally stepping into certainty. But just when you lean into that vision, they retreat. The same person who was talking about forever suddenly acts distant, detached, unwilling to commit to even the simplest agreements. This cycle of mixed signals isn't confusion, it's strategy. The avoidant thrives on keeping you off balance, dangling closeness like a prize, and then pulling it away before you can hold it. The constant push and pull makes you work harder, trying to close the gap, trying to earn the consistency that never arrives. And the more you chase clarity, the more control they have, because you've made them the gatekeeper of security. Outsmarting this means refusing to play the guessing game. When they hint at commitment, you don't build castles out of words, you wait for actions. When they pull away, you don't beg them to return, you hold steady in your boundaries. The truth is, mixed signals only hold power if you treat them as signals at all. But when you stop interpreting and start deciding, everything changes. You become the one who defines what commitment means for you, and you measure them by whether they meet that standard, not by whether they confuse you less. If they say one thing and do another, you trust the action, not the promise. This shift removes the haze they create and brings the focus back to your clarity. What unsettles them most is that you are no longer tangled in their rhythm, you're walking to your own. Their obsession is built on the tension of almost, but not quite. But when you no longer live in almost, the power collapses. You show them that your life will not pause in the waiting room of uncertainty, and that you refuse to be strung along by inconsistent promises. The real strength lies in your refusal to let their inconsistency dictate your direction. And when they see that their mixed signals no longer keep you tethered, they realize the game they thought was keeping you close is the very thing pushing you beyond their reach. They never want to face their own flaws directly, so projection becomes their shield. Whenever tension rises, notice how quickly the script flips. Suddenly, the very things they are guilty of, avoidance, inconsistency, detachment, are laid at your feet. If they withdraw, it's because you're too demanding. If they act distant, it's because you're smothering. If they make a mistake, somehow it becomes your fault. This isn't coincidence. It's a calculated maneuver to keep the spotlight off them and firmly on you. By shifting blame, they not only dodge accountability, but also destabilize your confidence. You begin to question your own behavior, wondering if maybe you are the problem, if maybe you are too much or not enough. That self-doubt is the real goal. Because once you're busy defending yourself, they no longer have to answer for their actions. It's a diversion, a smokescreen, and one of the most damaging games they play when obsession collides with fear of vulnerability. Outsmarting this tactic requires clarity and composure. Instead of rushing to defend yourself, you pause. You examine their accusations calmly, not from a place of guilt, but from a place of truth. If their words don't align with reality, you don't internalize them. You let the blame sit where it belongs, on their shoulders. The power here lies in refusing to absorb what isn't yours. Projection thrives on your reaction. When you fight back emotionally, the cycle strengthens. But when you remain grounded, when you calmly stand in your reality, their attempt to transfer guilt crumbles. It leaves them exposed, forced to confront the emptiness of their accusations. The moment you stop carrying their misplaced blame, you reclaim your balance. You begin to see the pattern clearly. The louder they accuse, the more they reveal their own hidden fears and weaknesses. What unsettles them most is that their tactic no longer works. Instead of making you doubt yourself, it makes you more certain of who you are. The obsession that once fed off your confusion loses its power in the face of your clarity. You don't need to win the argument. You just need to know the truth and live by it. And when you do, their projection becomes nothing more than an echo, unable to touch the confidence you've built within. In the end, every game they play is built on one simple principle controlled through confusion. Hot and cold affection, silence as punishment, emotional tests, jealousy, mixed signals, and projection. They are all tactics to keep you doubting yourself and chasing them. But the truth is, the moment you stop reacting the way they expect, their power dissolves. You don't have to fight harder for their attention. You don't have to prove your worth, and you don't have to carry blame that isn't yours. Outsmarting them isn't about beating them at their own game. It's about stepping out of the game entirely. When you choose steadiness over panic, clarity over confusion, and self-respect over desperation, you turn their strategies into dead ends. And that is where your true strength lies. You show them, without a word, that you cannot be manipulated, you cannot be controlled, and you cannot be reduced to someone else's insecurity. The games lose meaning when you rise above them, and what remains is undeniable your power, your peace, and your freedom.